Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 11 of the 2017 Tata Steel Tournament played on Friday the 27th of January. Wesley So, the proud leader after 10 rounds, played black against Dmitry Andreikin. He chose the Berlin defense and after only 25 moves a draw was agreed. Let's have a look at a game of two pursuers of Wesley So. Yi with white and Yi-Karjakin with black were 1 point behind Wesley So at the start of this round. Let's have a look at their game. Yi opened with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight f6, and also Karjakin plays the Berlin defense. d3, a different variation than in the Andreikin So game. Bishop c5, c3, black castled, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and now the pawn on e5 is no longer protected because the knight on c6 is gone, so Yi takes it. d5, Yi afterwards said that this is the variation that he had prepared before the game, so he was happy that he got his preparation on the board. d4, bishop b6, white castled, and d takes e4. Yi afterwards said that he thought that knight takes e4 instead of d takes e4 was better, and he said then, for example, knight d2 and c5, and that is about equal according to Yi. As said, Karjakin took on e4. This is also very playable. It was, for example, played in a game Anand Topalov in 2006, a rapid game which ended in a draw. And here Yi played bishop g5. Yi said maybe white is better, but it's not so clear. c6, c5 was criticized in the commentary afterwards. Bishop b7 is the natural move according to Yi, but Karjakin played c6, c5. Knight d2, developing the knight, and c takes d4. They looked at the variation. They looked at bishop b7 here, and then it's a nice variation I want to show to you. Then Yi said he would probably have played knight g4, putting pressure on the f6 knight, which is pinned. And the variation went on as follows: c takes d4, knight takes f6, g takes f6, bishop h6, and now you have to give an exchange with black because you cannot play rook e8 because of queen g4 check. It's mate in 2, king h8, and queen g7 checkmate. So after bishop h6 you cannot move the rook, you have to play king h8, and then white wins the exchange, queen takes back, and black has compensation for the exchange with his beautiful bishops on b7 and b6. Nice variation that started after the move 11, bishop b7. But as said, Karjakin took on d4. Knight takes e4 was played, and here Yi said white is better now. He felt comfortable that he had an advantage now. Again, a lot of pressure against f6. Karjakin took on c3 and queen f3, another piece putting pressure on the f6 knight, biting on the pressure. Bishop b7, and now taking with the knight is not so good on f6 because of course your own queen is then attacked. Black is in check, and the best move here is queen takes f6, both queens are hanging, and then queen takes, for example, g takes, bishop takes, c takes b2, rook a b1, and this position is about equal. So that was after knight takes f6. So Yi saw that this was not giving him an advantage, so he took with the bishop, and he said afterwards this was forced. Bishop takes e4, queen takes d4, and now Karjakin decides to give an exchange. He could have played here g takes f6, but then knight g4 is a good move, and if you look at black's pawns, they look ugly. The king is not safe, and this is a nice advantage for white. Karjakin did not want to play this, and he decided to give an exchange by taking on f6 with the queen. Keeps his pawn structure intact, but of course there is knight d7 with a fork on queen and rook. Where he showed the following variation here. He said, of course, black has to move the queen, so queen d4 is a possibility. Then white swaps the queens, and here comes a very important move, rook a d1. And he had seen this, of course. Because if you don't play rook a d1 but take on f8 straight away, greedily taking the material, then there is c takes b2, rook a b1, the rook has to play king takes back, and it's actually black who's better here. The main reason is that that b pawn is still alive, and that is a big thorn in white's side. But after the move, the in-between move rook a d1, attacking the bishop, it's good for white. You play bishop f6, the bishop is attacked, there's nothing better. Then white takes on f8, and if you now take on b2, which is not a good move, you have to take the piece back, but just to show, if you now take on b2, then that pawn is not attacking a rook on a1. So in this case, white then has time to just take the piece back and has won a full rook. That's why the move rook a d1 with tempo on the bishop on d4 was an important move in this variation. Quite instructive. Karjakin must have seen this, and he played queen g6 instead. The queens were swapped, queen takes, h takes, and now Weyi took the exchange. C takes b2 was the in-between move, rook a b1, and king takes f8. And this is an ending. Black has a pawn for the exchange. Well, he has two pawns, but he's going to lose the b2 pawn. And white is much better here. He has to show the technique to win this much better position. Rook fd1, king e7. One thing black has to do is to avoid exchanging rooks. If a pair of rooks come off, then white's task is a lot easier. He will have no counterplay at all and can only wait and suffer. White took the pawn, and here Weyi thought Karjakin should have played rook h8 with a possible idea of rook h5 to a5 with counterplay against white's a2 pawn. Instead, Karjakin played g5, rook bd2, and now rook h8, and a very strong move from Weyi. He's not in a hurry, he just plays a simple g2, g3, taking the h4 square away from the rook, and black now has a big problem in getting that rook active over the h-file. Rook h5, king g2, king f6, h3, stopping the move g5, g4, which was a very weakening move anyway. That g4 pawn would be rounded up by white. Rook h6, rook d8, king e7, rook check, king e6, the rook went back. White is not in a hurry at all. Again, very instructive in endgames. If you don't need to hurry, don't hurry. Take it slowly. Wait for the right moment to become active. Rook f6, played by Karjakin, and here, again, a very instructive moment where Yi showed together with Yasser Seirawan in the studio, they showed this variation: King e7 instead of Rook f6, then Rook a d5 hitting the g5 pawn, and for example f6, then Rook d7 check, King f8, Rook d8 check, King f7, another check, King g6, and Rook g8, hitting the g pawn twice, so the move Rook h7 is forced. And then, as Yi showed, he smiled and said, well, then I'm just going to bring my king into the attack. They showed f3, King h6, King f1, King g6, King e2, and black has nothing better than moving with the king between g6 and h6. Rook and king have to keep protecting the g7 pawn, and the bishop can't do anything either on the dark squares. So just to continue the variation: King h6, King d3, King g6, King c4, King h6, King d5. White enters black's position over the light squares. King g6, King e6, King back, and then King f7 or King f5. And now black is in zugzwang and completely tied up. White will eventually win the queenside pawns, or he may win with a mating attack, starting with h4. Very nice variation that both grandmasters Yi and Seirawan showed. This long variation started after Rook d2 and then King e7. Karjakin instead played Rook f6, desperately trying to activate his rook. Now both rook and bishop are at least looking at the f2 pawn. At least there's something for white to keep an eye on. Yi played Rook g8, and because the g7 pawn is hanging, Karjakin had to go back with his rook to g6, because you cannot play g7 g6, because suddenly there's a checkmate in the position. Rook e8, King f5, Rook d5, checkmate in the middle of the board. So to avoid losing the g7 pawn, Karjakin had to play the sad Rook g6. Rook e8 check, King f6, and after Rook d7, Karjakin had enough. He resigned. It was not completely clear to everybody that it was actually black who had resigned, that white is winning this position. In fact, the arbiter indicated that the game had ended in a draw, and Karjakin had to correct him. Why did Karjakin resign at this moment? He cannot prevent white winning the f-pawn. For example, Rook h6, and then Rook e7. Simply winning the f-pawn, there's no way for black to defend it. A very nice win from Yi, and by winning this game and Wesley So drawing, Yi is now only half a point behind of Wesley So. And in the 12th round, the next round, it will be Wesley So against Yi. So that will be a very interesting clash, and that game will most likely decide who's going to win this 2017 Tata Steel Tournament. These are the results of the 11th round. 6 draws and that wonderful win from Yi over Sergei Karjakin. The standings after round 11, Wesley So still on top, but as I said, Yi is now only half a point behind him, and they will play each other in the 12th round with Wesley So behind the white pieces. Aldianov, Carlsen and Aronian still have a theoretical chance to win the tournament, and you can see the rest of the field. Round 12 will be played on Saturday the 28th of January, and I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and please comment if you want. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.